Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Oh Shoot. I'm giggling because literally we just tried to record and I had a cough attack and choked on my matcha, but here we are. So we have a guest episode today. I'm chatting with Alex Blake. I actually just recently became friends with Alex. We met in April, like in person, and yeah, we just really hit it off. So I'm super excited to have her on the podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes. So, hi, little Cassabees. I'm Alex or Alex Blake. I am in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm a photographer, mainly get to shoot graduating seniors and then local to Charleston brands. And yeah, that's kind of my professional life. But
Mm-hmm.
also, I love the beach, get to live by the beach, get to live near downtown Charleston. So, like, what a life I have. Yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. So, how did you get started in photography? Kind of give me your origin story.
Yeah, the whole background.
Yeah,
So I got my first camera in 2015 and I got it for Christmas that year. So technically, like it was 2015, but it was like five
barely.
days, yeah,
Yeah.
and before 2016. So started learning my camera then, started on a Canon Rebel. And yeah, just started learning and taking all my friends out to take pictures of them. The pictures were trash, but it was what it was. We all start somewhere. And
Hmm.
then in 2017, at the time I was actually living in Florida and I moved home to where I'm originally from in Georgia. And I started taking clients there because I knew a lot of people there. So it kind of jump started me a little bit, but I also had a full time job and was trying to kind of balance both. And in 2020, when my job took a backseat, I was like, wait, I love this. Like, I don't think I realized how much I loved photography until it was like the only thing I was doing.
Hmm.
And I became obsessed with it and really just like never stopped. And that's really when my business took off for me, was when I was like putting all of my energy into it. And then I moved to Charleston. Me and my husband moved here in December 2022. And I went full time at the same time as moving, which is like a
Wow.
really weird decision, but it worked out
Yeah.
for me. It was like risky, but we're
Yeah.
here and I made it.
Especially because you like moved to like a new spot at the
Yeah.
same time that you went full time. So there's like no guarantee that you're going to like continue
Yes.
to get bookings.
I know, and Zach's family lives, like, 45 minutes from us here in Charleston, but, like, that was it. We didn't know anybody else, so we,
Yeah.
like, started from the ground up, but
Hmm.
we made it,
How did
people.
how did you navigate that feeling of like when you move somewhere and like you don't know if it's going to succeed plus you're going full time, like how did you navigate all those feelings?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of prayer. Just being real. No, like I think when Zach and I were moving, we were super excited for our move, and we knew that it was like the right thing for us. We knew that it was like a really, really good and solid next for us. I think in like the next season of life, we wanted to be near family and stuff like that too. So it made sense, but it also felt really risky. And I knew I wanted to go into like full time photography. I knew like had I stayed in Georgia, I probably also would have made the same decision, but this forced me into it a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and for a while, like it was crazy. Like literally, Cassidy, we moved December 2022. January, I didn't make a cent because I knew no one,
Yeah.
like I was just like,
Hmm.
this is the way we're rolling. But I worked really, really hard. And every month I'm like, okay, God, I gotta make like enough to make it, and it
Yeah.
worked. Like in February, I started making money and then it's kind of gone from there.
Hmm.
But yeah, a lot of prayer and a lot of hard work and a lot of intentionality on social media for marketing.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
so true. I feel like when you make a big move like that in your business, just in general, it doesn't have to be like a physical move. I almost always feel like I feel like I'm on the cusp of something. Like I just have
Totally.
this feeling of like I know something's about to change. It might
Yeah.
not be like it might be a horrible change. I might like lose all my bookings or it could be a great change, but it's just
Yeah, it's
like
a risk.
yes, you have this like feeling that you know it's a risk, but honestly for me that feeling is more motivating. You know what I mean?
I
Like
totally agree.
if I know I have something coming up, something that's risky, something that could change it all, I'm going to put like my 125% into it. You
Yeah.
know,
I feel like that's
125%,
such
that
a
was
like
very
that's a
niche.
lot. No, but I feel like that's like how entrepreneurial people are. Like when
Hmm.
you are designed to be an entrepreneur and just like build something from the ground up, it's exciting when there's something new like that. So I
Yeah,
totally
it's
agree.
so true. Yeah. So tell me, I have a few more intro questions, then we'll get into like what we actually want to talk about for the episode. But just hearing your story and how you got started, or maybe just give me like one of the lessons that you learned as you were
Ugh.
starting. Like, what were some of the big lessons that you learned?
Honestly, okay, I think you know this in my life because we have like personally talked about this, but community is huge for me and everything. And when you're moving to a brand new place, you have no community.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, I think like client experience is everything. And when you are a photographer, we're with people all the time. And like getting to know people and truly knowing them, becoming their friend, networking with people, that is like huge in building a business. So whether you're like a photographer listening to this or I don't know, a makeup artist or whatever, like that is so important when you could actually care about the people that you're meeting. And
Hmm.
for me, like moving to a new place, I really, really learned to be a networker everywhere I went. If I was at a coffee shop, or actually, this was huge, like I would force myself to not edit on my couch. Like I
Oh.
would force myself to go out and edit, even though I
Hmm.
knew it was more comfortable to do it in bed while watching Netflix, you know? But like I would do it at the local coffee shop so I could get to know the barista, so I could get to know people around me, and then eventually be like, also, I'm a photographer. Do you want to book me?
Yeah. I think a lot of the times people think that new opportunities are just going to come to them, especially when
Mhm.
you move. Like
Yeah.
people just think that things are just going to come to you on their own, but really you have to make the opportunities for yourself. Like they're
Yeah,
not just going to pop up randomly out of the blue. Like,
for sure. Yeah,
yeah.
and I think especially because I do work with local businesses too, like for graduating seniors, once I have a couple, the ball kind of rolls, you know, because they like post
Hmm.
on social and all the things. But with brands, it's really different. And like you have to do exactly what you just said, where like you've got to put yourself out there. Like you'll send 10 emails that are like pitching emails and then get like 3 yeses, maybe, you know. But
Yeah.
like that's part of the game is like you've got to put yourself out there. Or you're not going to get anywhere.
It's so true. So my last question for you, and that's the episode. Sorry, guys. Just kidding. What do you shoot on? What's your go-tos lately? What have you been
Yeah.
loving?
So my camera body that I use is a Sony A7R4. Yeah. I had to think about that. I was like, wait, did
I
I
know
say that
there's
right?
there's a lot of
Well,
letters.
it's like the R that always
Yes.
messes me up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Hmm.
yeah, like I said earlier, I started on Canon and then I went to like a 5D after my Rebel, a 5D Mark IV. And then when I went to mirrorless, I swapped to Sony. And
Okay.
so it's like funny getting to know like the different Sony names, you know? It's been like a year and a half that I've been on Sony, but still I'm like, wait, what is it again?
Yeah.
Um, and then I use a 24 to 70 2.8.
Okay.
So yeah, I
Awesome.
love my 24 to 70.
Yeah, I let me tell you, I just had a session 2 nights ago and I told myself I brought a 50 millimeter and a 24 to 70. And I was like, Cassidy, you are going to shoot on the 50 millimeter the whole time. Like you have no choice. You use this 24 to 70 too much. Like I mentally told myself, you're not
Mhm.
allowed to use the 24 to 70. I
And
did
then
one post
stop.
with the 50 and I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like
Here's my
I
hot
need,
take. My hot take is like, you don't really need those prime lenses as much because obviously, like, okay, filmy kind of stuff is in. So, like, you're going to use a higher f-stop, but also with Lightroom's lens blur,
yeah,
you kind of have it if you want
you
it.
have low f-stop right there.
Yeah. So,
Does it
that's my
look a
hot
little
take.
bit like portrait mode? A little,
Slightly. But do
but
your
I think
clients know?
maybe not.
I'm
I
just
don't
saying.
know. Yeah,
It's my
we'll
hot
see.
take.
We'll see.
We'll see if people agree.
Yeah, I've been loving the 24 to 70 though. Like I
Yeah.
feel like it's just I don't know. I love the 70 focal length. I
Hmm.
love the 35. Like, and I love that I
Hmm.
can have all of that within 2 seconds. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. No, for sure. It's so different. And I feel like my legs thank me. You know,
True.
like I was like squatting and running and all these
Yeah.
things. And now I'm just chilling, you know, it
You
just
know,
takes my fingers.
are we lazy? Maybe,
A
but it's
little bit.
okay.
Lazy
I
photographers unite, you know?
honestly, I used to be so against like all zoom lenses, but now
That's
it's
so
like
funny.
I just don't even. I don't care. It's fine.
Click
We can
lens
change
flare
our
on Lightroom
minds.
and we're fine.
It's
Yeah,
fine.
honestly, we're going to listen to this in a year and be like, what were we thinking? Like,
Literally,
it's so
literally.
funny. It's part of
So
creative, you know?
let's talk about organization, which is honestly like kind of the meat of the episode. I really wanted you on so that you could talk about this because you gave a really good chat at photo camp in April. So let's just start with like a basic, like why do you feel like organization is something that you're so passionate about? Because you're like the organized
Yeah.
queen. You're like this organized. You're just the queen of organization, truly. So why is it something that you're so passionate about?
Yeah, I think I actually kind of touched on it earlier when I was talking about people and like client experience, but I think client experience really is everything. I think I mean, I love my photography. I love my photos, but also there are so many photographers who are better than me, but
Mhm.
people book me all the time for my client experience.
Yeah.
And they book me because they want me as Alex, you know, and like the same for you too. Like your photos are amazing, Cassidy, but like people book you because you're Cassidy, you know, like, and
Mhm.
that's how like when people find you, they want you. But with that, like you've got to give them a good client experience. And I feel like the more that we streamline that, the more our clients can trust us, the more that they like want to refer people to us. It's not just the person that they see on social media, it's also a person that they can like fully trust. And then the other thing too is I really value and care about my own time. Like that's super important to me, and that's
Mhm.
part of why I love being a photographer, because I get to build my own schedule. And I think with organization that allows me to actually have time and not be like, what's that thing that people say when you're an entrepreneur, you work like, I don't know, 24, what's the 24/8 or something? Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah,
You know what
maybe.
I'm
I
talking
mean, kind
about?
of,
She said
sure.
maybe. Sure, Alex, great. No, but it's basically like if you have your own business, then you work all the time, you know? And
Yes.
I'm out here to like get those people. Like, no, you don't have to. You're out here to build your own schedule. And when you're organized, that's what you get to do. Like, you don't
Yeah.
have to work all the time. So
I
that's why I
literally
care so
love
much.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've heard of these photographers who take incredible photos, like they're true
Hmm.
artists, but their system of communicating, their means of collecting payments
Yeah.
or keeping track of it, literally
Yeah.
anything, is just so bad that because of that, regardless of the fact that they have Picasso worthy photos, like
Mhm.
people don't want to go back to them because that
Right.
experience was just not good, which is really, really unfortunate. Like
Yeah.
sometimes if you're not Picasso, like if you're not feeling like you're taking the greatest photos ever, your experience can lean into someone referring you to someone else. Like that could be the
Totally.
reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And there's always going to be clients, like whether you're a beginner or you've been shooting for 10 years, like there's always going to be a client who's for you, you know? So, like, you don't have to be Picasso to be booking clients. But, like, even if you are Picasso, if your client experience isn't good, nobody's coming back.
It's
So, we
true.
got to get our stuff together, people.
It's true. So you're going to teach us how to get our stuff together. Okay.
Oh,
This
gosh.
is
Okay.
Organization 101 with Alex Blake. So tell us, what's the secret? What are your systems? What does your organization look like? Kind of break it down for
Yeah.
us. And honestly, think of all of us as dummies. Like we know
Done.
nothing. We are the
Organization for
dumbest.
dummies.
Yes.
Got it.
Get
Okay. I
into it.
brought notes in true organization queen fashion. I was like,
And
okay.
that is so Alex of you. Like you.
So funny. I
I
cannot.
love
I
it.
always have notes. Like I could have a normal conversation. I'm like, hold on, I brought notes for this. It's fine.
You're like meeting up to catch up with a friend and you're like,
No,
hold on, I wrote
literally.
notes.
No, like for real. You know those like PowerPoints? That's what we need to do. Like, you know those PowerPoints where
Yes.
friends will come home from college or whatever and like, here's my life. That's what we need to do next time
I
we see each other.
love PowerPoints. I really want to do like a PowerPoint night with like my sisters and my friends.
You
You've seen
totally
those, right?
should.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was
The
talking about.
only the only problem is I'm the only organized one in my family, so like I would be the only one that would show up with a PowerPoint.
But
You know
like
what I mean?
honestly, still fun.
It's true.
You
Like
know,
I'll
like
just
be the
make it
only
all
one
about
that comes
me.
with it. Yeah. That's my
Alex,
life.
you can come bring your PowerPoint.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. I'll just fly over to Michigan real quick.
Yeah.
Honestly, that sounds so fun. When I see you in October for photo camp, can you please have a PowerPoint for us?
Honestly, sure. Just for
Great.
you. We'll just do
Sounds
like
good.
just you and me in a room. We'll just
Perfect.
PowerPoint with each other.
I'm so serious. Okay. Back to organization.
Right. Back to it. Back to it.
Back to the thing we were actually talking about. Okay, so two big things that I kind of want to talk about. The first one is workflow, obviously. We'll get to that in a second. But then the other thing that I want to talk about is boundaries. And the reason is because of what I said with like, people think that when you own your own business, you really have to work all the time. And it's just not true. You just have to set up boundaries so that you can take your hat off, because there's beauty to being like someone who owns your own business. But when you're a 9 to 5, you know, I go to work at 9 and then I leave at 5 and I don't bring work home. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to figure out your time management side. And a lot of that comes with boundaries. So when you set boundaries, this is what I wrote down in my notes, guys. When you set boundaries, you take the burden of your business off of your shoulders and you remind yourself that you're still a human, because that's so
Mhm.
important. Like, it's important that, Cassidy, you find time to drink matcha and play pickleball. like
Absolutely.
absolutely, or Pilates or whatever.
Yeah.
But like for me, it's important. Like something that I've been doing is like reading after work. And it's just something really simple, but it's like time for just me. I put my phone away and it's just me time to read. And that's been something that's like really beneficial for me as a human. It's probably not
Mhm.
beneficial for my business, but when I'm a better human and when I'm a healthier human, my business is better. My business is healthier. So I think boundaries are super important. Really, you get to decide what your boundaries are, but I just decided I would share some of my boundaries with you guys. So, the
Please.
first one, I will be so honest with you guys. The last 2 weeks, I have not done this, but normally I do. This is just,
Perfect.
I won't be a
Right.
hypocrite. I'll tell you. Um, yeah, the first thing is a rest day. I always have a rest day in my calendar. So my husband and I actually get to like lead a church. So I take Sundays fully off, but I don't consider that a rest day because we're working kind of for the church. So technically I take 2 rest days like off from my photography business, but I only count that as one day.
Mhm.
That changes every week. The last 2 weeks, I was out of town the first like 2 weeks of this month. And so the last 2 weeks have been like kind of nuts with shoots, and that's my own fault. So just
But
putting
you
that
took
out
like a
there.
whole week. Yeah. Like you
Yeah.
took a week off, so then you kind of have to make up for it
Right.
sometimes.
Right. So,
Sometimes.
like, you got to be flexible with your boundaries too.
Yeah.
But we're back to implementing them starting this week. So,
Mhm.
a rest day is one. The other thing that I do, I disable my apps. So you can kind of like put that in your settings to disable it at certain times and specific days. Every day for me, like Monday through Friday, my apps disable after 6:30 p.m. And then they don't like come back until 8, I think it's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So that whole time my apps are disabled. I personally have my code and I usually have the discipline to not go on it, but I always want the option because there are times where I have a sunset shoot and I want to post about the sunset shoot or something like that. And so,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm not super strict on it, but like my husband, he's like, I have no discipline. Like, if I want to have my apps disabled, you need the code and I can't have it. So, like, I have his. So, there's kind of different ways to do it.
Mhm.
I've started doing this the last like month and it's been amazing for me. Honestly, Cassidy, you should do this. It's great.
Okay.
I put my phone to bed. So I like tuck it in at night. But I'm not kidding. I put it in like our spare room, like our guest room,
Yeah.
and I put it to bed and I go in my room and my phone doesn't come with me. And then I
Mhm.
wake up and I usually like read in the morning and journal in the morning. And then after that, I'll go get my phone. So it's
Mhm.
kind of like just me time to be a human with nobody like having access to me, which I know sounds like really weird. But I feel like
Yeah.
when our jobs are on social media so much, our jobs like are on our phones, people just have access to us all the time and they don't need that. Like
Yeah.
you get to
It's
set
true.
what that is. So I've been
Yeah.
putting my phone to bed and it's been really fun. I really
Mhm.
enjoy it. I like
Do
read
you
at
have
night.
like a separate alarm clock then?
Okay, good question. I wake up weirdly early, so I don't need an alarm clock.
That's literally
but
crazy.
but I do think I am gonna go to like Walmart or something and buy an alarm clock,
Yeah.
but not for the alarm, just for the clock. Because I wake up
Have you
sometimes and I'm like, what time is it?
have you heard of the Hatch alarm clocks?
Yes, where it's like the sunrise,
Yeah. I
right?
really want I've been wanting to get one for a while because like I try to put my phone somewhere else while I'm sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I want like the Hatch alarm clock to kind of wake me up.
Yeah.
I've heard good and bad things about the Hatch alarm clock, but I feel like it's a good like just having an old school alarm clock that is
Yeah.
not hooked up to your phone in some
Yeah.
way is good because if your alarm goes off on your phone, you turn
Right.
it off and you have your phone in your hand. So like
Immediately goes.
obviously
Yeah.
you're immediately gonna go to some different app. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Wait, this is actually so funny on this note. So my husband sleeps with like his watch on. He has like a Garmin watch or something. Is that what it's called?
Okay.
I don't even know. But it's like one of those like running watches. And I couldn't sleep the other night and I'm like, "What time is it? I don't know. I don't have a clock in here." So I like go over to his wrist and I'm trying to tap on the face of the watch and he's like snoring over there. And I accidentally started a run on his watch. And I didn't know how to end it. So the whole night it looked like he was on a run.
He wakes up, he's like, why have I
So
been running for 5 hours?
so funny. I actually don't know if I told him in the morning. I kind of forgot. So he was
That's
probably really
so
confused.
funny.
All that to say, I should probably buy a clock. So
You
if you do
should.
put your phone to bed, buy a
Yeah.
clock.
Love that.
And then the last big boundary that I have is work hours. This is really flexible, especially in the summer, because I do a lot of sunset shoots for seniors. But if I don't have a sunset shoot, my work hours are usually like 10 to 5:30 at the latest.
Okay.
And when that is done, like my laptop is put away, very similar to the
Mm-hmm.
phone kind of being put to bed situation.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but if I have a shoot, that
Right.
obviously is a little bit different. Got to be
Yeah.
flexible.
So,
So yeah,
wait, can I add something real quick?
do it.
So, something that we talked about was how around like, is it 2 p.m.? We both like
Yes.
really struggle with continuing to work. Like,
Hmm.
our brain kind of gets in a little bit of like a slump almost.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's like the brain's in the slump. I feel super unmotivated and it's
Brains in
really,
the
really
slump.
hard. Like my brain is literally on do not disturb. So that's something that if you notice that maybe you have similar tendencies or whatever, you could give
Hmm.
yourself a little bit of a break around two
Totally.
o'clock, or maybe you start earlier and
Yeah,
finish closer to 2 or 3. Obviously, like not
true.
saying you specifically, Alex, but like if
No,
someone else feels like this.
but
So
sometimes
that,
I do that. If I have a sunset
yeah.
shoot, I usually end my like work day for that day around that
Hmm.
time and I go to the pool
Yeah,
and then I'll pick
truly.
back up for sunset
It's great.
because
And
like,
something else that I've started doing is if I have a wedding on the weekend, I'm taking a day during the
hmm,
week because
totally.
that wedding took up a day of my weekend. And I, just because I'm an entrepreneur, doesn't mean I don't deserve a weekend. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm
Yes.
taking Tuesday or Monday to literally chill because I had a wedding that weekend. Or if you have a
Yeah.
shoot in the evening, give yourself an extra 2, 3 hours in the morning because
Yeah.
you spent your evening shooting.
Right. I feel like every summer I have this like, oh yeah, I forget that the sunset is so late.
Yeah.
And I have this like thing that happens where I'm like, oh my gosh, I accidentally worked a 13-hour workday yesterday. Like for no
Hmm.
reason. No apparent reason did I need to do that. But I just forgot that the sun was so late?
Yeah.
So I feel like every year I have to retrain my brain in that and then like kind of configure my boundaries to fit the time of season too.
Hmm.
So, and especially for me, summer is like super busy season for me.
Hmm. It's hard because when you have a shoot for sunset, it kind of feels like the whole day you're just anticipating it. It feels like I
Mhm.
can't truly go to dinner and feel relaxed because
Yeah.
I've got a shoot in 30 minutes. You know what I mean?
That's
So,
so funny because I feel like no one, unless you're a photographer, understands that.
yeah.
You know what
And
I mean? Like they don't get why your brain isn't switched off.
I think it's because we handle our own clients personally. Like it's so
That's
personal to
true.
us. Whereas like if you're working a 9 to 5 or whatever, if you have a meeting in the evening, it's like, oh, it's just a meeting or like,
Yeah.
it's run by other people or whatever. But when it's 100% all based around you, there's a lot
Mhm.
of pressure. So it's really hard to just like
Yeah.
let it go.
That is so true. Yeah. So boundaries come in handy with
Yes,
that.
they do.
That's when
Okay.
honestly, I feel like if I have my phone near me, I feel more of that burden. But if I put my phone
Hmm.
away, I feel less of it.
Yeah.
So that's just a side note. But the other thing too that I was going to talk about is the workflow. And I feel like that's super important with everything we were just saying too, because like you're feeling less like stressed and anxious if you've done a good job communicating before through like your workflow. So
Hmm.
let me chat about that. Okay. I'm just gonna chat. Stop me if I say something
I
weird or
will.
if you wanna, like, ask a
I can
question on
like put my finger up if I want to say
it.
something.
Just interrupt me, you're good.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing that somebody does is reach out, right? And for me, I never, ever, ever, ever text or DM or anything about a shoot. I actually have, like, an Instagram, I have a little thing. What is that? Like, you can have, like, a shortcut where you type in a word and then it
Yeah.
pulls out the whole text. Yeah, so
Hmm.
I type in, like, "inquire," and then it just has this, like, a text that comes up, kind of like what do you call those things?
A template.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to say signature, and I'm like, "Wait,
Hmm.
what? That is
Good
not a
try.
signature." Thank you. A template that comes up, and then I just hit, like, send, and it sends them, like, my HoneyBook link, and then they can fill that out. If they don't fill that out, sorry, I'm not shooting with you. So, I'm just being honest. So, they fill that out, and then an automated email kicks back to them based on their inquiry, and based on, like, what they wanna shoot. Because in the inquiry, it asks, "Are you a brand? Are you a senior?" Blah, 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 blah. So based on that, HoneyBook basically sends them back an email that is like an automated template, and it attaches a smart file to it with all of my pricing. So I do want to pause here and say HoneyBook actually also has a way that you can schedule through HoneyBook, which is great. I personally don't use that just because I feel like it doesn't work for my life and the way that my schedule is. But if you're someone who maybe shoots every Tuesday for sure, and every Thursday for sure, every Saturday at this time, HoneyBook scheduling would be a great email to add into that, or great thing to add into that email to send to your
Mhm.
clients, because then they can book you like super easily. But for me, my clients click a button on the file that says when they're ready to book. And then if they say, yep, I'm ready, then I email them with a different smart file, and then they pay their deposit and sign their contract. So that email that I send back is also a template. So basically, nothing so far I've even had to do other than click a button. Like I haven't had to type out an email that's different to everyone because I've got all the information from them already. And then I just click,
Mhm.
there you go. Once they sign their contract and they pay their deposit, which they're not booked until they do. We always sign contracts, people. We always pay
Mhm.
deposits. Just putting that
Wait,
out
quick
there.
question. What's
Yeah.
your deposit? Like, is it a percentage? Is it a flat fee?
Yeah. I do like 10% usually.
Okay.
Um, for brands, depending on the brand and depending on how like large the contract is with them, because that can be different, I do 25%. So just
Okay.
depends.
Cool.
Yeah. But then once they book, I immediately send them back another template. So again, all I've had to do is click a button and it sends them a questionnaire. And then they'll fill out the questionnaire. HoneyBook sends me a notification and says they viewed it. And then also that they have like filled it out. Once they fill it out, I click a button. It's just a template and it sends them an inspo questionnaire. And for this one, this has actually been really, really fun. I don't know if this is something that anybody does, but I started this year and seniors are obsessed with it. They love it. And it just has like 3 questions on it. And one says like, can you upload a couple of photos that are like your aesthetic? And they'll go on Pinterest and they like, have pictures of the beach or like this pink sunrise or whatever it is that's like their aesthetic. And then I'll ask them another one where like, what are your favorite photos that you see on my page? And then they like screenshot those and upload those. And then favorite photos that you just like in general. And those are usually kind of like ones that they would find on Pinterest or something like that. But that's been really fun to get to like see exactly what it is that they like and maybe why they
Mhm.
like my work. So that's just a side note. And then after that, it'll say that they viewed it. It'll say that they filled it out. Then I send them location ideas, vision, and outfit information. This is interesting because this is where I also have templates for my most used locations. So if this is what to me is more of a basic session where like they've seen my work and they're booking me because they know I do this a lot, I have a template based on those locations, that vision specifically, and stuff like that. That's like 90% of my shoots because I do graduating seniors. They're booking me for that specific look, right? So I'll go ahead and like send that template to them. Again, all I've done so far is click buttons to just say like this email, send. It's great.
Yeah.
But that's also the place where like if I wanted to, depending on their session, I get to be as creative as I want. So like for me, that's the place where like I can type out, oh my gosh, I think I saw this location and I have this in mind for you. I think this would be really, really cool. What if you also rented a car for this? What if you also grabbed these kinds of flowers? Like, you know what I mean? That's where, like, depending on what it is in their inspo, I can also go that route if I want to.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the communication side. And then the week of their session, most of the time, too, I will say, going back to the location ideas, it's like super rare that someone would say they don't want that location. So most of the time for me, they're going to be like, yep, looks good. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
great. Awesome. Sounds good. And then the week of their session, I send them final details with a time, an address, and then other notes. Other notes are really dependent for you specifically, like where you are, what you need to put. Like for me, Charleston is very hot. So, like, they need to bring water. They need to bring a towel to dab their sweat. They have to bring makeup because it will drip off of them if it's in the summer. They need to bring a towel because all of my seniors really get in at the end in the ocean. And so that kind of
Okay.
thing. But yeah, that is like my workflow. That's very specific to me, very specific to my graduating seniors. I use that as an example. So obviously, you shoot weddings, Cassidy. Yours would look different than mine. But
Mhm.
I think like the idea of templates and just being able to click send is so, so important to have.
Yeah.
The only thing worse than taking too many photos while you're shooting is getting home and then having to edit all of them. Here are some ways to speed up your editing workflow without losing any quality in your work. Today, I want to introduce Aftershoot Edits 2.0. You can experience the most consistent edits straight out of Aftershoot. One of my favorite things about Aftershoot is their upgraded white balance and exposure AI models. Even if your lighting varies during your session and you have a lot of drastic changes, Aftershoot's able to instantly fix any blown out highlights, murky shadows, and overall, this feature allows you to have balanced photos no matter what your lighting conditions were. Another way to speed up your editing workflow is by using AI masking in Aftershoot Edits 2.0. This feature allows you to selectively edit your images through masking. With AI masking, Aftershoot can automatically select your subjects and adjust them to really make them pop in your image. Another great way to save time while you're editing is to use Aftershoot's advanced cropping and straightening. This tool allows you to customize and select any aspect ratio, and it even automatically crops in your photos so that the focus is more on your subject. It also can automatically straighten your photo, which is going to save you so much time in the long run. Say goodbye to spending way too much time editing your photos and use Aftershoot Edits 2.0. Aftershoot has an exclusive offer for all Oh Shoot listeners, so go to the link in the description of this episode to find out more. Thank you guys so much for watching, and now back to the show.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean that even applies to like engagement sessions or couple sessions. It could apply to weddings as well. I do think specifically for weddings, an important touch point would be some sort of phone call or
Agreed.
Zoom call. Do you do that? Is that something that you try to incorporate into your workflow, or do you not find it important?
I don't for my graduating seniors.
Okay.
And it's very rare, but there have been times where like moms will request a phone call with me. Chances are they request it and they haven't looked at the questionnaire yet. My questionnaire is very extensive. So the senior fills it out. The parents don't fill it out. Like I ask specifically for them to hand the laptop off to their senior. But once they see that, most of the time their questions are answered. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. And okay, this is just kind of random, I guess, but because you shoot a lot of seniors, like not all of them are 18. So how do you go about that? Do you have like a parent that needs to sign or what?
Mhm. Yeah, the parent needs to sign their contract, basically.
Okay. Does a
So
parent have to
it
be
makes it easy.
present as well?
No,
No.
I don't. I would need, okay, I'll be honest. I would need to look in my contract and see. That's probably something that would be smart to like add into it just to say that the parent doesn't have to be present.
Yeah.
Um, the majority of the time, the mom is there, like
Right.
vast majority of the time. So I do tell them that I allow up to 2 people to come, but there are
Hmm.
times too where it is just the senior that comes, and it's never
Okay.
been an issue for me.
Have you ever dealt with like a mom that is a little bit more overbearing? I feel like specifically with senior sessions, the moms, like to voice their
Yeah.
opinions on poses and stuff. Like, how do
Oh,
you deal with
for
that?
sure. I will say my style for seniors is not as posed and prim and proper. So the more that I've kind of niched down into my style and it's very clear what my style is as they're booking, I have a lot less of that because it's
Okay.
more the like free and carefree kind of look for seniors. And so because of that, like they're just not going to book me if that's what the mom wants most of the time.
Hmm.
Um, but I will say that when I first started, I had that a lot more and it was really hard. So a lot of the time I am very encouraging because I think sometimes when the parents are that way, it can make your seniors feel kind of more in their shell. So I try to be like really, really over the top encouraging if I feel like a parent is over the top overbearing, or
Yeah.
whatever. I also try to really win the parent more than also winning the senior. Like you have to kind of balance that a little bit.
Hmm.
So asking the parent intentional questions, asking them questions. Are you sad that your daughter's leaving? Oh my gosh, I can't believe your mama heart. You're such a good mom. Like really speaking life into the parent too kind of helps because then they trust you more. And then always making sure to get the quote unquote mom shots is really important. So getting
Hmm.
a couple of those maybe to start and then going into all of the fun. And that way the mom sees, okay, they've got the ones that I want. And then they kind of step back a little bit.
Yeah. That's really smart. I like that. I just was wondering because I
Yeah.
know specifically with seniors, it just seems like that would be a little bit
Yeah.
of an issue. And I'm sure
Yeah.
even like as you get into more niche or like higher price range, those moms
Yes.
don't always go away either. Sometimes they might be worse.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I have a lot of
Yeah.
tourist moms
Oh,
too.
okay.
So that's interesting. What I have found, and this is kind of niche to me, but like something that I found is like my tourist seniors, they're the highest paying seniors that I usually have. They almost always book my highest package, which is 2 locations, and they almost always want downtown Charleston and the beach. And once we get to the beach, the seniors' moms are always hands off because they kind of understand that the beach is like windy and carefree and everything, but they always
Mm-hmm.
care about the downtown sessions.
Yeah.
So that might be something to think about if you are going into like higher paying seniors. If you're listening to this and that's kind of like what you're wanting to do, maybe have in mind a couple locations where one is just more of your like free photos, like maybe that's a field that they're running in, and those are the what you're posting of that. And then if you have like a little city nearby or something where you can do the more like seated photo or not seated photos, posed photos,
Yeah.
and stuff like that for the moms. And then like posting both is really important.
Yeah. I like that. That's a really good piece of advice. So let's get back to organization a little bit.
Yes.
Um, do you have any tips for someone that might be struggling to stay on track while they're working? I know we talked a little bit about like some discipline with your phone and stuff, but do you have any other tips for someone that just really
Yeah.
cannot stay on track while they're working?
Yeah. I think one thing that really is helpful to me is having specific days for specific things. It's really hard to shift my brain for some reason. So, kind of what I said earlier of like, I do not work on photography things on Sundays because my brain is just in church and friends and community mode. Like,
Mm-hmm.
to me, I can't have both in my brain. It doesn't work like that. And so, having like a day for editing is much more helpful to me than having an hour of editing. And I know like some people do block calendaring. That could be really helpful too. So maybe you've got to have different things on different days and that's okay. But taking a few hours to do just something important rather than like having, 30 minutes for this and then 30 minutes for that. And then they're all different. Like, I don't know, for me, my brain wouldn't work that way. So I think
Yeah.
that's super important. The other thing that I've been doing, and this has been really helpful for me, is putting like posting times on my calendar. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
post at this time specifically. And then when I go on, I'm only using the time that's on my calendar to post and scroll during that time. And then trying really hard to not get on my phone and going straight to social media because that is how we waste our time,
Yes. Yeah,
It's fun, but
for
it's
sure.
distracting.
Yeah. Something I've noticed in Instagram, at least for me in like my little app, is I actually have the option to schedule now. I don't know if you have that. Like it's in my advanced settings. I can schedule
Yeah.
a post. So
Have you tried
whenever I
that?
just feel, yeah, I've tried it and it works fine. It works great. Post when I need it to, and that's about it. But it's nice for like my feed posts. I don't do it for reels. I don't know. I don't think you can do it for reels. But for my feed posts, those are kind of like I get just this inspiration like once a week to, oh, let me post on my
Yeah.
feed, but it's not always an ideal time to post when I get the inspiration. It's not always doesn't line up
Yeah,
with what
that's so
time I should
true.
post. So it's nice because I can go in and schedule like a bunch of posts, but I don't have to like I think before there's like an option on like Facebook on your desktop to schedule and you'd have to like, it was like this whole thing, but it just feels so easy. So that's something that's really helped me.
Yeah.
And also I'm holding this up if you're watching on YouTube. A paper calendar. Literally, I don't do this very often, but I think it was like 3 days ago. I literally was like, I am so overwhelmed with everything that I have to do right now. I'm
Yeah.
stressed. I'm overwhelmed. I feel like I'm about to crack. And so I went into my office, sat down, and on paper, wrote out time blocks of everything I needed to do. And at the end of it, I was like, I feel so good. That makes me
That's so
feel so
funny.
much better. And so something as little as that really helps me stay back on track. It really like grounds me. Just a good
Yeah.
pen to paper,
You know.
It's just you're like, I do that every day.
So
I don't know.
wholesome. I do. I journal a lot, but the whole like pen to paper for a calendar, I can't do
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Everyone's so different with that.
I have everything in my Google Calendar regardless, but it's like the tasks, like
Almost
the
like
little
getting it out of your
checklist.
brain, like a brain
Yes,
dump. Yeah, I do
exactly.
have to
Yeah.
have that. If I feel overwhelmed, I like the night before going to bed, before putting my phone to bed, I'll get out my notes app and like just brain dump all the things that are on my mind of like, I have to do that tomorrow. I have to do that tomorrow. And instead of
Yeah.
having it like inside my brain, I just let it out.
Yeah, it's amazing. Love a good brain dump. So
Yeah.
my last question, organization wise, have there been any times where you've been unorganized and it's just like really scarred you and just
Mm-hmm.
like really made you be like, okay, I need to get this all in check because this was a horrible experience.
Yes.
Plenty.
Yes. Actually, no. Literally, I feel like my entire workflow is just a compilation of trial and errors.
Okay.
Like I feel like whenever I have something like some type of blunder with a client or with a session, I always, always, always walk away from it. And of course, sometimes I'm like frustrated because it might be more of the client's fault or whatever. Like that's how I feel. But then when I'm more removed from the situation, I ask myself, how could I have done that better? What is it that's in my process that maybe could have been there to have stopped this from happening? So, so I'll tell you guys a story. I had a shoot when I first moved to Charleston. I think it was like February of last year. So like really early on into me living here. And obviously I had a lot going on, right? Because like I had moved here and like I had a lot going on. I should have done a brain dump. And I had shoots. I think I had like 4 shoots that week. And so I was focused on whichever one was coming like the next day or whatever. Well, I didn't have anything on my calendar for the next day, but I woke up to a bunch of texts. And thankfully, I wake up early, but I woke up to a bunch of texts from a girl who was at the beach waiting for me for a sunrise session. And my heart was like, done. I mean, it was dropped. Like I'm like shaking. I was like, oh no, everything is on fire right now. Like I'd like just moved here. I'm like, I'm never gonna book another client. So I immediately like respond to her and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I will absolutely refund you, but also like I'm on my way. I can, and I'm like quickly getting dressed. But then when I log into Honeybook to go to refund her, I realized her shoot wasn't that day. It was actually the next day. And she had it wrong. And
Okay.
so she had completely like, she'd woken up the wrong day. She'd gotten an Uber to the beach the wrong day. So that was an awkward situation for me.
Mhm.
But what I could have done better is had that final details email that sent the
Mhm.
week of, because at that point in my system, I didn't have that. The only time that I was like really clear about their date was like what was on their invoice when they were paying. And then when they first booked, I told them we're booked for this date at this time. But at that time, I wasn't doing the final details email. So me doing that email was a direct result of that blunder, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a whole hot mess of a situation. Still thinking about it, I
Yeah.
have anxiety.
Yeah, that's literally crazy. Sometimes I have people who will be like, hey, so excited to shoot or so excited for like I do mentor calls or whatever.
Yeah.
But like they haven't paid. And I'm like,
Mm.
it does not go through. Like in my calendar, it
Excuse
does not
me.
show up unless the payment is made.
Yeah.
So I find that to be like an interesting hurdle because I was expecting you to be like, oh, she didn't pay until like she was there, but like literally didn't pay. Because, some people like to
Yeah.
pay last minute or
That
just
is
don't even
true.
think about it. Because
Does yours not go through like onto your calendar through Honeybook when they make their deposit?
It does. Wait,
Okay.
what?
So they just hadn't made their deposit at all.
Yeah. Like
Oh, that's
like
crazy. And
no
they're just
payment had
expecting you
been
to
made.
be there.
Yeah. It's like, okay, that's not how this works, but okay.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So I wanted to talk to you about finding your niche because you have a very specific niche, but you did start with shooting weddings and stuff. So I'd love to hear, like, I guess what helped you find your niche and like, was it hard to transition out of weddings? Kind of like talk me through that whole process of what made you make the decision and all that.
Yeah. I would like to preface with like, yes, I did used to shoot weddings, but I was not like Cassidy Lynne level, like just to clarify. So it wasn't
Okay.
like, this was my brand, this was my niche, and I shifted it. It was like I was still beginning, I was second shooting, and then I had transitioned from second shooting to taking my own weddings. I did probably 1.5 years of like really shooting weddings. And for me, I found that I was really tired, honestly. And part of that is I actually have an inflammatory disease. And so that's like also a thing too. Like I would come home and my body was really tired. And I felt like while I enjoyed the people that I was getting to be with, I wasn't enjoying the actual work. And especially at that time, I was still part-time doing all of that. And so I was like doing that. And I'm like, why am I doing something that I don't love? Like, why would I do that? Because like I love shooting, I love people, I love photography, but I'm not loving like an 8-hour wedding day and then going to work the next day, you know? So that for me was like a big question of like, okay, but what is it that I do love? And so I started taking like inventory because I was also taking seniors on the side at that time too. I was just taking inventory of like when I come home from a session, do I feel good about the session? Like, do I like this? And in the beginning, I had pretty quickly narrowed down that I don't really love shooting families. That was like not my thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that even happened because I was like, when I come home from a family session, I'm exhausted, you know? And there are
Yeah.
some people who come home from a family session and they're like, this is my jam. Like, I love it. So if you're not loving what you're doing almost every time, like, there's always going to be a couple that are like, you know, but like if you're coming home almost every time from a session and you're exhausted, you should look and see like, are there other things that I can branch out into? Because for me, for
Mm-hmm.
seniors, I would come home and like love it every single time. So it was just different for me with that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the other thing that I would say is like to be realistic with it too, because I think for a while I was like, I loved creative portraits and I really tried to like brand myself as like a creative portrait photographer. And while that's amazing, I felt like I wasn't clear with my niche when I was saying that because like what's the difference between that and like a graduating senior shoot like to the client. We as photographers know, right? But like to the client, they don't know. And so being like realistic when I'm saying like creative portrait that like the client needs to understand what I'm saying. And also, it's probably going to take a lot of work to like get into Vogue one day, you know, or like to be in this magazine or to shoot for Gap, you know, or something like that. Like, would that be amazing? Absolutely. Should you work towards that if that's a goal? Absolutely. But what can you do in the meantime that can show off your work too? You can work with local brands. You could work with creative seniors. There's lots of photographers who do that. So I don't know. That's just a thought, but being
Yeah.
realistic too in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of terms that as photographers, we have like our little jargon of
Mm-hmm.
different words like creative portraits, but in all reality, you have to think of from the client's perspective, like what are they looking
Mm-hmm.
for? What are the words that are going to get them to book?
Yeah.
And yeah, like
And
you can
searching. What are they
have
searching for?
right, you can have really documentary style, even like what is the word? Like film inspired.
Mm-hmm.
There's like one word I'm thinking of. Cinematic type of
Yes.
stuff. But at the end of the day, like you really just have to you can't be like too intense about it because
Mm-hmm.
like that's not necessarily what your client is searching for. They don't know the word cinematic
Yeah.
couples photographer. Like they're probably just looking for like Michigan photographer is what they're looking for.
Yeah.
They're not looking
Yeah.
for cinematic couples imagery, right?
Right.
Like that's
But
not
that's
really.
like they're going to visually look for that. Like they're going to
Yes.
know what they like. So when they see your work after searching up Michigan couples photographer, when they see it, like you're going to be the one that they immediately book,
Exactly.
but you got to give
But
them
do
the
we
right
have to
like
put it into
terms.
words? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So if someone listening is kind of struggling to find their niche right now, they're kind of like feeling back and forth a little bit. What are some tips that you would have for that person?
Good question. Yeah, I think really what I said earlier is like finding what you love, like taking note in your heart of like what actually lights you on fire about photography is going to be really important. How tired are you when you get home from a session? Like asking yourself those questions that helped
Yeah.
me, I would really say it's just super important. And then also like looking around you is also really important too. Like, are you around naturally just a lot of couples with kids? You know, like, because it's going to be easier to book those people too. So, depending on how like efficient minded you are, because I'm very efficiency minded, like, I'm just going to look around and like who is closest to me that I can immediately make my clients. So, for me, like, I used to work at a church and I was a student pastor. And so that's how I always had seniors on the back burner, you know, like even when I was like going after these couples and all of that kind of stuff. And I was really trying to like get into weddings, I always had seniors that were booking me really easily because I knew them in my natural life. So like looking to see who's around you could be an important like, or an easy way to go ahead and like start in something too.
Yes, I agree 100%. Love, that's a great tip. So I wanted to ask you, this is what I ask all of our guests. Do you have a crazy photography story that's going to just shock us to our core that you can share with the audience, with everyone listening?
Okay. No, but I will share. I
'Cause
will share a
you're
crazy
too
story.
organized because crazy things
Well,
don't
to
happen
shock
to
you to your core is like a really that's like a big statement.
We've had some crazy stories on here.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
just crazy stuff.
Yeah, honestly, a big one for me that I thought it was like that sunrise thing. But also, okay, this is kind of funny. So my friend Preston, you know Preston,
Mhm.
Preston Luke was in town. It was last February, and I had set up like a styled shoot for us, and it was on Folly Beach, which is where like photo camp is hosted and everything. And I at that point was like dreaming about hosting photo camp. So I was like, Preston, let's go to this location, let's check it out, it's gonna be great, like kind of in hopes that one day I would host something there and with a bunch of styled shoots. And we were on our way, and I'm driving, and I get pulled over. And so we're like on our way to the shoot, and I get pulled over, and the police officer was so mean to me, Cassidy. Like it was like I mean, I don't know. I feel like I'm a nice girl, but like he was like not having my kindness. Like, it was like I don't know if he saw it as sarcastic or something, but he was like not nice. And he basically like he was yelling at me because he said that I was speeding, and like, my bad. I was speeding. Like this is on
Right.
me. Give me a ticket. Everything is fine. But then he literally is like talking to the other cop behind me, and me and Preston are watching him, and me and Preston are like, "Oh no." Preston said, "Alex, I think you might get arrested." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." We're like dead serious. I'm like, "Preston, you need to call Zach, my husband," because I'm like, I don't know what's about to happen right now. But they were like just so angry with me for some reason. So it turns out that in the system, I have insurance and everything, but in the system, it looked like I didn't have insurance. So they were
Okay.
like getting ready to get me out of the car and everything. It was like a whole crazy situation. I'm not even going into enough details for this story to even make sense, but just know I almost got arrested. And then
Yeah.
thankfully, they called my insurance people, and it said that I did have insurance, and they didn't arrest me.
That's
But
great.
then we leave, and we go to the shoot, and then it starts thunderstorming, and we weren't able to have the shoot. So I almost got
No.
arrested for nothing, and it was like a really scary moment in my life.
That's terrifying. Yeah, on the way to the shoe, getting pulled
On the way
over.
to the
That
shoot,
is
getting pulled over, I'm like messaging all of these people. I had like a stylist for the shoot. I had I think like 3 models. 2 of them were getting their makeup done at a makeup artist. Like, so I was like trying to schedule all of these things, almost get arrested, get to the beach, and thankfully we got there early still. It starts pouring down rain. Then I have to reschedule all of these people. But I will
that's
say
so
though, one
unfortunate.
of the models had already gotten her makeup and hair done. And so we went to like an indoor studio location, and she ended up
Oh,
becoming one
okay.
of my best friends. So
Wow.
through
Oh,
the
that's
craziness, I
fun.
made a friend.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is pretty crazy. I think that's something that I fear on my way to a shoot is getting pulled over, or even just like this
Yeah.
is gonna sound really morbid, but like getting in a crash or something where like
I've
maybe
thought
I'm
that
not
too.
where maybe I'm not physically injured, but like my car, like I can't
Yes.
continue on because my car is in a place where I can't get there.
Yeah.
And it's like I literally think of these things and it's like, bro, like my clients would be like, don't Uber here. Like, we'll just do it another day. But like in my
But
head,
to
it's like
you,
make
yeah.
or break. I have to walk 20 miles to the shoe. Otherwise, you know what I mean? Like, I
You
feel
carry the burden. Like,
yes, you
no, I
really
had a
do.
friend. I had a friend who at a wedding, I think she was second shooting. She wasn't like the primary shooter, but she locked her keys in her car. Yeah. And she locked her keys in her car, like with the groomsmen. So she had to get someone to like drive her to the actual venue. I think she like rode with the groomsmen, but she locked a bunch of her gear in her car. So
Oh,
she only had like the camera body and the lens that she had out with her. So that's a rough one.
that's really
I
tough.
know. Honestly,
Oh,
terrifying.
gosh. So, Alex, why don't you tell everyone a little bit of where they can find you, follow you, in case they want a little bit more of what you've been sharing?
Cool. Well, hi, friends. Glad that we're friends now. You can find me at Alex Blake Photography on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, probably anywhere else. I don't know. Don't look on Twitter because it's probably like me from 2012 or something.
Oh gosh,
But
maybe you
like
should
everything
delete some
else,
tweets.
honestly, who knows what's on there?
You're over here
But yeah,
tweeting about Miley Cyrus and
probably you
Nick
know me,
Jonas.
probably. Nick Jonas is crazy. Um, Anyway, yeah, Alex Blake Photography. Also, I do host educational content weekend called Photo Camp. The next one's in October, but I'll actually have one, next year as well. So you can look at photocampinfo.com. And then I also just started a podcast. So that's
Yay.
exciting. Yeah, it's nothing like, oh shoot, because I'm like a month old into my podcasting career.
That's okay though.
But it's called Let's Create with Alex Blake. So you can check that out too.
So cute. Awesome.
You
well,
came
thanks
up with
again.
the name, Cassidy, but
I did help with the name. I'm like, is she going to give me credit or is she
I
just
got
going to
you. I'll
say
give you
that?
credit. I think we talked about you for like all of the podcasts we've had so far.
Oh,
so.
that's so sweet. Thanks. So, everyone, thank you so much for listening. And Alex, thanks again for coming on the podcast this week.